Did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter?
Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System.
The Nintendo Entertainment System is an iconic piece of gaming history that put Nintendo on the map in the late 80s and early 90s. This is in part due to its massive library of games. Now, I love a good NES game. If my Retron 2 didn't almost catch on fire that one time, I'd probably be here gushing to you about Astyanax or Chippendale Rescue Rangers. But there are some NES games that nobody's ever been able to play, games that have gone unreleased or cancelled, maybe even lost to time. These are 10 lost or unreleased NES games we might never be able to play.
You want to be cool, you gotta wear Kiripo.
Kiripo is a character created by the Sanrio Company in 1988. In 1991 and 1993, 2 Famicom games based on the character were released exclusively in Japan. The titles simply translate to Kiripo's Big Adventure 1 and Kiripo's Big Adventure 2 respectively. Originally, there was a third Kiripo game for the Famicom that was also set to be released in 1993. Unlike the 2 other games starring Kiripo, this one was going to be a turn-based RPG. The game's title translates to The Legend of the Magical Kingdom of Kero Kero Kiripo, and had the titular frog traveling to the Magical Kingdom to stop a villain named Razuri from taking it over. Instead of typical RPG weapons, Kiripo would have only used magic during his fights to, quote, convert his enemies. I honestly have no idea what that means, but my best guess is that maybe this was supposed to be some sort of non-violent RPG? Wait a minute. The most likely reason for the game being cancelled was due to when it was developed. By the time it was slated to come out, the Super Famicom would have already been around for 3 years, making a game for the original Famicom way harder to sell. Super Dog Booby was a Famicom game set to be developed by Jaleco in 1991. The game would have had a similar plot to the Oscar-winning art house film Baby's Day Out. The player would have taken control of a dog as he tries to protect his owner's baby and keep him away from danger. The only 2 times that Booby was shown to the public were at Nintendo's Space World event in 1991 and in the Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu. Nobody really knows why the game was cancelled. Maybe for the same reason as Kiripo? I like to theorize that the game was cancelled for just not being that fun. Don't get me wrong, it looks interesting, but the whole idea of an entire game being one big escort mission, I think I speak for a lot of people out there when I say that sounds shit. Jungle Emperor Leo is an anime created by Osamu Tezuka. Referred to as Kimba the White Lion in the West, the show is most well known as, oh, hey, it's that one thing the Lion King ripped off. Which isn't true, by the way. In 1990, there was supposedly a Jungle Emperor game being worked on for the Famicom by Taito. Not much is known about Jungle Emperor. There was never any video footage of it, and it was hardly ever mentioned outside of Famicom magazine. Funnily enough, there was also a Jungle Emperor game planned for the N64 in the late 90s, but that was also cancelled. Looks like Leo can't catch a break. Donkey Kong's Fun with Music was an educational game developed for the Famicom in a similar vein to Donkey Kong Jr. Math, which would be released later. Like the name suggests, the game would have taught players about music, using characters from the Donkey Kong series. The Lost Media Wiki lists a variety of reasons for why the game never hit store shelves, ranging from licensing issues to the low quality of the Famicom's microphone.
Al, let's have sex!
No pig.
Married with Children is a sitcom that ran for 10 years on Fox from 1987 to 1997. In 1990, there was supposedly a game being developed for the NES based on the show. Unlike the previous games I've mentioned, this one would have ran on an unauthorized cartridge, without Nintendo's seal of approval. This method was likely used because of the game supposedly containing risque humor, in a similar style to the Leisure Suit Larry series. Because the developers were struggling financially, it's rumored that barely any material exists for the game. No prototypes, videos, or screenshots have ever resurfaced. The game possibly never even made it out of the planning stages. Twin Peaks is a TV series directed by David Lynch that ran in the early 90s. In 1991, the second season of the show was to be adapted into a game for the NES by High-Tech Expressions. The game was reportedly an RPG featuring multiple playable characters and a branching story. It was mentioned in a few magazines before disappearing entirely. Like Married with Children, no material exists for the Twin Peaks NES game. Hellraiser is a fantasy horror franchise created by Clive Barker, and is one of my personal favorites. After the release of the first Hellraiser film in 1987, the company Color Dreams bought the rights to adapt the movie into a game for the NES. The game's premise would have the player be stuck in hell, with the Cenobites from the movie chasing after them. As well as attacking enemies, the player could also use the puzzle box seen in the movies to manipulate the map and find a way out of each level. Like the film it was based on, the game was possibly too ambitious for its own good. Color Dreams would have to manufacture an entirely new type of unlicensed cartridge. This cartridge would not only bypass the NES's lockout chip, but do a whole slew of other things, in order to get the game running on the Wolfenstein 3D engine as planned. The cart cost $2 million to create, not to manufacture, just to make the thing. That would be extra. Not only that, but players would also have to purchase an expansion pack for the NES in order to use the cartridge. So if you're keeping track, the game most likely would have ran you the exact same price as a whole ass NES. Besides the cost, making the game an even riskier endeavor was the fact that at this time, retailers like Toys R Us refused to sell games that weren't officially licensed by Nintendo. Ironically, after Hellraiser was cancelled, the game's developers later shifted their focus to developing Christian games based on stories from the Bible. Though no other Hellraiser game was ever attempted, creator Clive Barker did have a hand in creating some original video game IPs in later years, like 2001's Undying. So last night, I just got done editing some parts of the video, and I look on my YouTube right, and I see Justin Wang made a video about the exact same game I was about to cover, and I just want to let it be known that I researched and I wrote this video before I ever saw his video on it, so I don't want to say I did it first, but you know. Wait, Shunks, I hear you say. A Nightmare on Elm Street already came out on the NES. I saw the AVGN play it. Why is it on here? Well, 1, shut up. 2, unlike the game we got, the original idea was something completely different. You would have actually been able to play as Freddy Krueger this time around, and the objective of the game was to stop the children of Elm Street from burying your bones by warping into their dreams and killing them. A few screenshots of the prototype were published in Nintendo Power, showing what the gameplay originally looked like. As well as the parts where you confront those damn Elm Street brats, there would have been a few top-down sections where Freddy traverses the dream world by warping through pipes, electrical outlets, and mirrors. Already, I think you can guess why this version of the game never came out. Nowadays, we have games like Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight, but back then, Nintendo's strict censorship probably wouldn't allow a game where the whole point was murdering people, especially kids. In later reports of the game and the final release, you can see how Rare changed the premise to have you taking control of one of the human characters instead. Alright, this is officially the scary part of the video. DJ, play the creepypasta music. Thank you. Dewey the Dolphin is a mysterious game that was originally developed for the arcade, but was eventually planned for the NES and Sega Genesis in 1990. No reasons were given by the publisher, Ocean Software, as to why the game was cancelled. People speculate that it was either because of the recent release of the Super Nintendo, or because the game's premise was too similar to Echo the Dolphin. The only 2 screenshots we have are of the title screen, and Dewey meeting up with King Neptune. Both of these are honestly pretty uncanny looking. The backgrounds are all black, and the art has this really gross feel to it. Not gonna lie, this really wouldn't feel out of place in a creepypasta or something. I honestly debated talking about this one because everybody and their mom knows what Yaya Biebus 1 is. Well, we don't actually know what it is. That's kind of the whole point. Yaya Biebus 1 was a game that was mentioned in several magazine listings from June 1989 to January 1990. This is the only known mention of a game going by this name, leading people to theorize what it could even be. I'll run you through all the major theories. The name could have been made up as a form of copyright protection, in order to check if any other companies copied the list by seeing if the game was on there. It also could have just been a placeholder to fill in blank space on the page, or an inside joke. Maybe even some obscure unlicensed game that nobody's ever heard of. There are a few candidates for games that could have accidentally been mislabeled as Yaya Biebus 1. People theorize it could be the game Baby Boomer by Color Dreams, or possibly a mistranslation, either of the Famicom exclusive game Baby Kyonshi's Adventure, or the cancelled Super Pitfall 2. This is probably just me, but Yaya Biebus 1 sort of has a slight unsettling nature about it. The fact that there's literally nothing about this game besides what it's called, and even then, the name doesn't tell us anything about what the game would be. Seriously, what genre would a game called Yaya Biebus 1 fall into? This sounds weird, but the whole ordeal sort of awakens this primal fear of the unknown in me. There is honestly no other way to explain it, it just creeps me out. Well, lost media is always a fun thing to talk about, especially when it gets a little bit spooky. All this talk of NES games finally got me to buy a Retron 3 to play some of my old games on. Let's give it a try! Oh no, not again! Well, the fire department's on their way. Stay tuned for the next video about the Japanese My Little Pony spinoff you've never heard of. In the meantime, you can like this video and drop a comment down below if you enjoyed this one. Also, if you want to see more videos from me in this channel, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, goodbye.
Crawl up on the sea ponies when you're in distress.